Hey guys, so I don't have long because I've got to do something this weekend, but I just thought I'd comment on this whole Ben Shapiro walking out of a BBC interview thing to make a few points. Number one, Ben Shapiro, as far as I know, I've been thinking for a while about actually looking at some of his debates and seeing to what extent I think he really is a good debater. I've really not watched any of his videos, so I don't know, maybe he is a good debater, maybe he isn't. I can't say either way. This video kind of implied he wasn't, but the two other things I wanted to address. Number one, he calls Andrew Neil left-wing, and Andrew Neil says, if you knew how ridiculous that statement was, you wouldn't have said it. That's in reference to the fact that Andrew Neil used to write for the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail is one of the most ridiculously right-wing papers in the UK. Basically, Andrew Neil is most definitely not left-wing. But the other thing, I think that Ben Shapiro just didn't get how the BBC works compared to other publications, other news channels, particularly in America. Because in America, there's obviously a very clear bias going into it. And in the BBC, what basically happens is the BBC is just unbiased in the sense that they are maximally contrarian. And they will take anything you say and interpret it as uncharitably as possible, and they will take anything they can and turn it against you. And that's pretty much how the BBC works. And you can say that's a problem, and I think to an extent it kind of is. It sort of does encourage a mentality of, just taking the worst things people say and interpreting it very badly, which I think is a problem because it means that people who kind of say things more nuanced and say things that are easier to frame as fascist or objectionable in some way, when actually their takes might be quite intelligent if looked at more intelligently, those people are more damaged by the BBC style of interviewing. For example, Jeremy Corbyn, who has made some controversial yet true statements about terrorism. He said, that terrorism can be done for good causes. And he said, for example, his famous quote was that, this wasn't his quote, it was a quote of one of his colleagues, but a very close colleague said that the IRA bombings brought Britain to the negotiating table. And the thing is, that's a relatively kind of nuanced take on the issue, obviously, and one that would rub people the wrong way. If you put somebody like that in a BBC interview, then they get seriously hurt because, that's a very easy thing to say, oh, so you're saying that terrorism is good, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, by contrast, somebody who is very middle of the road, never says anything controversial, never gives any kind of interesting takes, will be much harder to give the old BBC treatment where you just say, so you said this. Now, does this mean you're saying, insert very uncharitable interpretation here? Now, so that's kind of my opinion on the whole BBC style of interviewing. I think it's not a good way of talking. I think that it would be much better if you were, instead of being maximally uncharitable and maximally confrontational and contrarian, you were maximally charitable and you were trying your best to understand people in a good way. Now, having said that, of course, where Ben Shapiro went wrong is that apparently he didn't really get any context for what a BBC interview was like. So he went on there and, of course, got a whole load of uncharitable interpretations. At one point, they said, is the pro-life position, it's like sending people back to the dark ages, isn't it? And that's the exact kind of thing the BBC would say. Isn't this position like insert very horrible description of that position? And then your responses go, well, no, I don't think it is, Andrew, blah, 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 blah. That's how the BBC works. It's not that useful, but that is how it works. But of course, I guess in this time, while it's not useful and nothing of value was gained from it, it was at least entertaining, and that we got to see Ben Shapiro go, oh, how dare you say my position's from the Dark Ages? That's my best impression of a Jew I can do. Anyway, so that's it, yeah. And apart from that, bye. Thank you to my current patrons: Hannah Taylor, LRX89, Stephen, Kirsten, Nancy Diamond, Stephen Lester, Rosemary Furman, and Eric Hernandez. You're all very appreciated.
Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can!